Hey TR, how's it going?
Oh, yes. I mean, it's so much better now that I'm in this space with you, Mello. You and I have such a good time together. So this is,
Virtual hugs, virtual hugs.
yes, yes, all the hugs.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I know we know each other. And we did introduce you the day before, right? About your podcast and things like that. Your podcast is called No Mama, Just Issues. And but even beyond the podcast, I think you'd be a great person to talk to because you're doing that and you're also a big educator. And also, I've always known you to also do a lot of fun things like roller skating in Nicaragua. And we'll talk about that later. But I guess, yeah, I don't know. Like, would you want to tell us about a little bit about your podcast and the inspiration of why you even started it?
Yeah. No, again, thank you for having me here, Mello. You and I have known each other. We go way back, which is wild. It's over a decade now that we've been friends. So seeing each other grow in different ways has been really lovely for me anyway, very nourishing in my soul. So yes, I do have a podcast, and the way that this started actually is my mom passed in 2020, and I realized that I never captured any of her stories. So a lot of the times, the conversations that my mom and I had are just in my head. And sometimes our memories aren't really the best data, right? The best thing because it changes. Like we shift our memories sometimes, and so. I was really affected in the worst way because I think I was grieving the stories that I never got to capture and also the stories that I will never have with my mom. And so one of the things that I did was that I got really close to my sisters actually after our mom died. And we were having all of these really emotional and fruitful and impactful and loving conversations with each other on how we navigated grief. And I, in my head, was like, you know what? I podcast for work to capture people's stories, right? Why don't I also do one with my sisters? Because then, even if we don't have an audience, I was just really doing it for me. I have ADHD, so I'd be forgetting stuff. So the way that I love to think of it is like I want to capture my sister's stories and my sister's perspectives and their sides of the stories as well and be able to listen to it later on. So when I'm 50, when I'm 80, I can just be like, oh, here's the podcast, here's a story. I just want to hear it again. So I really love being able to re listen to the conversations that my sisters and I have. And that was kind of the inspiration is that I wanted to capture data, as you would say, right? Like I wanted to capture the stories, I wanted to capture the emotions, um the feelings and how we perceive things in a way that I can continue replaying over and over and over again. So really, it was just a selfish reason for me. I was even thinking about future generations. If we were to have kids, we can just say like, "Hey, we have this podcast. If you want to hear how hot of a mess we were back in 2024, listen." Right. So that's kind of what I was thinking about when I started this podcast. I'm really grateful for my sisters actually prioritizing this as well because my youngest sister lives in Seattle, so there's a time difference and we all have full-time jobs, but my sisters have really prioritized recording once a month to have our conversations recorded about just different things.
Wow. Wow. That sounds so powerful. Um, Especially when you were talking about, you're trying to basically document this data that's in your memory, but you want to make sure, like, am I remembering the right thing? It actually sounds like data validation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're doing
Mm-hmm.
that by collecting, oh, let me try multiple sources of data, which is like your sisters. So I think that's remarkable that you even thought of that because other people, especially, I've listened to some of the episodes, and these are not cookie cutter kind of stories you're talking about, right? Sometimes, uh, especially, this like the relationship between mother and daughters, and a parent and a child. Um, well, actually, let me go back. Is it? parent and children, right? And
Hmm.
so I'm sorry, because I know you identify as non-binary, so you know I just want to acknowledge
Thank
that.
you.
Yes, yes,
Great
yeah.
self-correction there, Mello. And I know like this is it's so new for my friends too, because you and I have been friends forever. So you know me as this one type of human being, right? And so shifting, there's a lot of grace, Mello. There's definitely a lot of grace. I also continue to misgender myself, so it's all good.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that I had that moment. I had a senior moment, and then I was like, wait, self-correct there. So thank you, thank you, thank you for giving me that grace. Yeah. So it's like a mother and children, or a parent and children, and just there's going to be a lot of potentially emotional, potentially traumatic experiences, right? Which I'm sure exists in every family. um yes, actually that actually makes me think, when you do these episodes with your sisters, um do you have a specific question in your mind going into an episode, or it's more like, let's hang out and let's go on different tangents wherever we go. Like, how
Yeah,
do you figure out like what you're gonna talk about in your podcast?
yeah, that's a really great question. I think we tried to plan it out for the year. And so it was just more so like, hey, here are all the topics that we can have conversations about. And again, it's just like you said, traumatic. My sisters, my siblings and I, there's seven of us, right? And so my sisters and I got really close, and our childhood, our upbringing was a little rough, maybe really rough. And so we've blacked out a lot of our childhood, right? And so having these memories filled in by each other has been, again, really impactful and emotional, right? Because I just forgot a lot of stuff. And so I think when we sat down and planned about the different types of conversations, we were just really thinking about like, hey, what were some of the topics that were taboo to talk about in our family, and also what were some of the topics that we avoided. And so we started out that way, but then it just kind of went into, you know what, let's talk about like just present day. And we actually don't have a title for the podcast. We just record the conversation. I'd be like, hey, do y'all want to talk about money today, or do you want to talk about, like we start off with what's bringing you joy, and then what, a question, and then we just kind of take the conversation wherever we need to, and then the topic come or the title comes after, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like you said, right, one of the episodes that you listened to was, do you have any Filipino friends? And you were like, it was kind of all over the place, but not all over the place. And like I always really love telling listeners and my friends and family who listen, it's just that, hey, these are three neurodivergent folks. So we really try to stay on task, but a lot of the times we veer off and have conversations and we're just like, oh, wait, I thought about this. And oh, wait, I thought about this. And so it's just, like you said, it's a very organic conversation. And I think I really loved what you said earlier too, before this recording, of like, you just felt like you were eavesdropping, right? Like it was just such an emotional and very intimate conversation, and you're just like eavesdropping. And I think that was the whole reason too, just like, you know what, let's just have it out, like let's just have a conversation, because I feel like siblings don't have the types of conversations that I would like for siblings to have, right? Because I don't know, there was this like TikTok video, Mello, of how it's so weird that you grew up with your siblings, but then as adults you rarely talk to them. And it's just, I don't know, it's such an interesting concept to me. So the topic, we tried to plan it. It's kind of planned, and then we just kind of
Semi-structured.
go off wherever. It's, yeah, semi-structured. Come on, neurodivergency here. Like we love a good structure, but we also know we not going to stay in that structure,
And
and
that's what
we've
makes it
embraced it.
great. That's what makes it great, because then the conversations don't sound so rigid, right?
Hmm.
But I would say, while you were talking, I am just so amazed of your approach into like filling in this missing data through like a
Hmm.
collective action. It's like a collective way of filling in missing data, which is like usually it's like, in research, like the person who's conducting the analysis, like, oh, there's all this missing data in this survey. this database, this data file, and that person like makes a decision. But I love how this one is like you're conferring with each other. It's like I have this gap. Like, do you have a gap on that, or do you have something to do you remember something about that? And I think that's really powerful. This collective approach to filling in any like missing data, if you will. Like that's what I'm gonna call it. Um,
Yeah. I love that concept too, Mello, because I have a lot of feelings when it comes to research because it has been very white, right? And I also feel like research and data has been weaponized, especially for like Black and Brown and underrepresented marginalized groups, right? And so I have a lot of feelings about that. And so for me, being in a collective, being in community with folks and having conversations with people, I think that's a lot more powerful than anything. And like you said, right, sometimes researchers just create or decide for whatever, right? And I feel like before I do that, I want to have conversations. Like I want to know what the needs assessments are. I want to know like what folks are thinking before creating or making a decision. So I'm shifting my mindset on research and data. As someone who's Filipino and we are expected to be really good at math and numbers, I am not. I've accepted that, and I think that's one of my hesitations too with just research and data. Because I've just never embraced numbers like that. So for me, it's like stories are data, emotions are data. And so I really just want to that's where my superpower is, and that's what I want to focus on too.
yeah, no, totally, 100%. Data doesn't have to be numbers.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
I'm
doesn't have
I'm
to be
just now
numbers.
learning that.
Yeah. Well, you said a lot of things that made me, remember all these other great things about you. Where you said, okay, data could be emotions, and data could be like how you feel in your body, right? And like I said, when I first met you, like I've always known you're athletic, or what I not call physically in tuned. Um, and I feel like when someone's physically in tune, like you have to listen to your body, right? Um, and I'm just wondering in terms of like that kind of data. I know people may not know this, but TR just started learning how to roller skate. Uh, and it's a very intense new hobby that you even went to Nicaragua to a roller skating camp. Can you tell us how you got into this, first of all, and then I'll ask you how you use data in your body and you listen to navigate this new hobby?
Yeah. Well, yeah, Mello was with me when I first started CrossFit, honestly. Like Mello would go to my competitions and cheer me on, take all the photos and videos. I mean, it's a whole vibe out here. So for roller skating, it's really funny. Shout out to my ex because it was definitely my ex who invited me in and encouraged me to try roller skating because she had wanted a, shared experience. And so she wanted to pick up skating again. And so she was like, hey, let's do this. And so she was actually the one who introduced me to skating. She got me some dope ass skates. She introduced
Wow.
me to some dope ass people. And then we went skating whenever we were together. So it was like really experiencing different rinks. And so she kind of worked with me as a beginner of like what to do, what not to do. And then we broke up. And for a
That's
while I had a
okay.
stranger. Right, right. Things happen, right?
Yeah, life
Different
happens.
seasons. Um, and so I really had to reclaim my love for skating because I thought it was my ex's hobby for the longest time. And so I had invested so much money already on these like custom made skates and like going to different places to go skating. And so I said, well, why not continue that? And why not reclaim this joy in Nicaragua at a skate retreat? And I've known about this skating retreat through some skating friends that I met in Washington. And I thought it was a perfect time because why not? Just kind of, clean off my skates and try to love the skating experience that I used to feel, right? And so I went to Nicaragua. I met some, again, it was all women and it was just so much fun. Like people I just feel like the roller skating community is so welcoming, so loving, and they're willing to teach me and they're willing to be patient. And so it's funny because Mellow, I started skating in 2022, so it's been 2 years, and so I'm not like a beginner anymore, but I'm not intermediate. I mean, I think I'm intermediate, and it's definitely taking a lot of time. And so when it comes to being in tune with my body, you really have to, it's a lot of letting go, but it's also a lot of weight distribution, right? So again, we're thinking about, oh, I need to go on this side to be able to do this turn, or I need to do this thing for me to be able to skate backwards. And so it's a lot of trusting my body and trusting the process as well. And that for me was the hardest. So someone who is a survivor who has gone through so much trauma, it's really hard to trust our bodies, right? Like it was just one of those things where I ignored all of my guts signs, my body sensations, and it wasn't helping me with anything. And so I think I used physical activity to remind me that, like, oh, my body's here. My body's able to do this. Even though I'm carrying so much trauma, my body is able to continue taking care of me so that I can continue moving and living the life that I want to live. And so I think the physical activity that you're talking about is really important. A, because I have ADHD and I need to move, but B, honestly, just to be reminded that I am alive, that I have this body and that I can continue to move even when mentally and emotionally I'm so bogged down. And I think roller skating has taught me that. It's experimenting, right? You do this and then you fail, and then you try it another way, and then you fail, and then you do it. And like it's constantly failing for me, and I've embraced failing because of roller skating. I think I really appreciate too about scientists and data scientists at that fact, right? Like, of just the fact that I hear this concept or this phrase all the time of think like a scientist, right? Hey, if this doesn't work, it doesn't mean it's good or bad. It just means something didn't work. So try another way. Oh, that one also didn't work. Try another way. And I really love that. And so whenever I'm going through like failure over and over again, I just constantly remind myself, think like a scientist. You're going to find it. There's going to be different, lessons as to why this didn't work, why that didn't work, but just continuing to try it, and then now I just feel a lot more comfortable in my body and a lot happier, I think. I feel really liberated being able to now be aware of my body sensations and actually listen to what my body's telling me. And again, I think it's just like that physical activity, the roller skating, the community. I think community is just so important for me to be able to continue collecting the stories that I can share with folks.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. I've never heard someone talk about roller skating in this like iterative process, like what scientists do when they're doing research. And but you're right, it's very similar. And to be able to do this, you know, with yourself as an individual, um, but also in community, right? It's amazing that you can like, hey, I'm doing this physical thing on my own, but I'm also sharing this knowledge, this physical knowledge with other people. I think that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I think you do embody that because even for your regular job, regular job, I didn't mean like in a bad way. Your job, you do work with a lot of educators. And so I feel like community is literally in your personal and professional DNA. Because
Hmm.
you train teachers, am I correct?
Yep, yep, yep.
Um, yeah, we're gonna wrap up in a little bit, but can you like just quickly tell us like what that's like? Because when you're working with teachers, I'm imagining they're all different levels, like beginner, um, and experience, and I'm sure you get different kinds of resistance,
Oh my goodness, yeah, yeah.
different people. And
Um,
hold on a second, I'm gonna close this door. I hear sounds. There you go.
Yeah, I love that. I think so I've been in education since 2010, maybe even prior to that, because I did a lot of volunteer work to be with students. I think our youth really gives me that power. Not even power, just like it ignites my passion. They ignite my passion. They give me so much to look forward to because when I tell you Gen Z is where it's at right now, Gen Alpha, I find it to be so great. So I've been in education. I always thought I was going to be forever educator, and then realizing, and I was okay with that. I love being in the classroom. I taught middle school English. I taught adult ESL, and so those were my people, right? And I think for me, again, growing up in South Georgia, looking the way that I look, being queer, non-binary, I fit all of those like not normal boxes. So I always felt othered, right? And so for me, I've always wanted, my priority is always to create a sense of belonging for people around me, to have this community where people can show up authentically as themselves. And the way that I do that is that I show up as authentically as myself. If I mess up, I mess up. If I don't know something, I don't know something. And I always know that the experts are all around me. Just because I'm leading learning experiences for folks doesn't necessarily mean I am the only person who knows something. I always am intentional with spaces where I create time and space for folks to connect with each other and to share what they're doing in their classroom, because I think that's also really important. Like, we can learn from each other. So I think for me, community has been a value of mine for the past couple of years, and collaborating with other people who have amazing brains, because again, right, learning from each other. And I think that's capturing stories is a superpower of mine, but I think also creating community in person and virtual is also something that I am really proud of. And I think also because it stems from me growing up isolated and lonely and not having a community, that's what I want to create for others. And it brings me a lot of joy too. And so when I get to work with educators and there's resistance, it's always interesting, especially in white spaces, Mello, where folks are like, I don't know how we're gonna. I don't know. You're tattooed. You have a shaved head. You're darker than us. There's a lot of preconceived notions already about who I could be. But then at the end of the time we have together, when I tell you, educators come up and just say, "Oh my gosh, that was amazing. Thank you so much for creating this space." I've heard that multiple times. This was so engaging. This was so meaningful. It was impactful. All of that good stuff. And that's what I want for the learning experiences that I create for teachers, right? And when I think of resistance, resistance means that they're paying attention, first of all. I never see resistance as like, oh, so and so don't want to do this because of whatever, right? Resistance means that they're paying attention. So when I feel resistance from teachers, I always say, "Okay, yes, now you're paying attention. Let's talk about it. I love
They're
this."
aware.
And right, right. They're aware. And so I'm like, "Heck yeah, resist all the way." And you should be resisting sometimes, right? Like you want to question what's being put in front of you. You want to be able to think critically. Is this going to work? Is this not going to work? So I welcome resistance. Like, yes, Resistance and I are besties, so don't even play. And so and it's also just adults really want to be listened to. They don't want to be given advice. They don't want to be, said, "Hey, like do this, do this, do this." They just want to be listened to a lot of the times. And so when there's resistance, it's the fear that's showing up, right? Because change is scary for a lot of people. And then there's also anger because, like, as teachers, right? We're not often trusted to do what we are and like what we're supposed to be doing, right? We're always being questioned about why we do things. People are always taking things away from us. Like it's weird. And so I understand as an educator of so many years how all of these emotions come into play and show up as resistance. And so again, providing a space to be brave, like be angry. Let's be angry for a hot minute. Let's be upset for a hot minute. And then acknowledging how people show up in the space, and then having conversations about how we can create a better space for them so they can create a better space for their students. It trickles down, right? So I love what I do. I love what I get to do. It's so much fun to see the different ways of teaching, the different subjects that are being taught, and also the passion and the love that our teachers really have. It may not show up the way that folks expect it to show up, but like teachers are really like just we just trying our best. We doing our best out here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I get this, when I get to have conversations and elevate educators, especially educators of color, I don't know, I love it. It feels good for me. It feels like I'm doing my part, my life's purpose of being able to elevate educators and celebrate them, and then providing them support that they need that they didn't have before. So, Mello, I could talk about education all day. I love it. I love it. I love everything about it. It is so crusty. The education system is so crusty in the States, right? I think, yeah, in the States. I'm not even going to talk about other countries, but like in the States, it's really crusty. And there's some really good parts about it too. So that's kind of what I'm doing is just creating these little pockets of joy for myself, for educators, and for students as well. Because why not? Like, again, world is crusty. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. Well, thank you for that because I love how you're treating resistance, anger, joy, basically as like data points when you work with these educators. And it sounds like they really appreciate like not just what you have to like offer them resource wise, but just that listening ear, like what you said, like that's all they need because um it's hard out there for a teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. And I think like when they come into the spaces that I create, there you can just see like their walls come down, like okay, like I'm really upset that I have to do this, right? But then it's like, oh, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait. Oh, this is actually really cool. And I love that. And you're right. It's really all about data points, right? Because you kind of have to gauge how is your audience feeling? How are they acting? Body language, right? And then we can make some shifts based on what people are saying, based on what people are doing, so that again, it's more meaningful and relevant for teachers, for human beings, honestly, just to be in this space together. Because again, time is the best gift, right? That we can give people, especially educators. And so it's like, why would I waste your time? um, because I know my time was wasted for many, many, many years. So with all of the professional development where it was just like really talking at us for hours at a time. And so yeah, it's just it's such an interesting world and it's fascinating how people navigate this world of ours.
Wow. Wow. Well, we can go on and on and on. But like I think we got a lot of insight from you about your super multi-dimensional world and how like you see data like in your personal within your body and also like how you relate to in your personal relationships and then how you also work with all these educators. So I think like I love this whole discussion about your trifecta of thinking like a scientist in different ways basically.
Yes,
um
yes.
yeah, and so, yeah, I mean, I want to thank you again. Hopefully maybe we'll have a part two because I'm sure we have like 10 more. You might have new hobbies like next year, right? I
I'll definitely have new hobbies. Come on.
don't know. Or new
Um,
podcasts and new everything. So, um,
yes, yes.
this is amazing. So, yeah, thank you again and we hope to see you, sometime soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mello. This was great. I love conversations with you. So
Same, same, thanks. Okay, I'm gonna stop it now.